5, meteorologist Brad Miller for 1250 WTMA Total Weather.
Thank you, Brad. Right now it's partly sunny at 80. I'm Fred Story, 1250 TMA Total News. Depend on it.
Okay, Fred Story, you can't leave yet. You can't leave. Yeah, you can't leave. Because today is Monday, June the 1st, okay?
Yeah.
And 20 years ago today, WTMA entered the realm of talk radio, and the Low Country has never been the same. And for many of those years, this way, when I say, hey, good morning, welcome to the Morning Buzz, I'm Richard Todd, that's not the way the show began.
No.
You remember, I bet you have this worn and groove in your brain.
Right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a blast from the past. Ladies and gentlemen, our 70th birthday celebration continues with this.
All right, wrap up your newscast as you're
I'm Fred Story, 1250 TMA Total News. And now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in living color, it's the Dan Moon Show.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. We were all supposed to do that at the same time, guys.
That's true.
Wait a minute. John, can you stop it a minute?
All right.
Stop.
Let's try it again.
Fred,
Can we try that again, Q?
Wait a minute.
Brad.
I'm sorry we messed that up. We're out of
Take two.
practice.
Fred, let me tell you. You remember the line went this. Now it's time for hour number 2 of the call-in portion of the
Dan
Moon Show.
All right, let's do it right.
Okay.
You hit it off,
Fred.
Fred.
All right, here we go. I'm Fred Story, 1250 TMA Total News. And now, ladies and gentlemen, live in living color, it's hour number 2 of the call-in portion of the Dan Moon Show.
Yeah. That's the way you did it.
Does that feel comfortable? Does that feel like...
It's almost as if all these years hadn't passed. It's just amazing things you remember that you just never forget.
Well, folks, I'll tell you right, I'm Richard Todd, and I'm just the latest inhabitant of this chair that's been occupied by radio legends in the 70-year history of the Big Talker. And one of them is sitting right here in the studio with us. You know him, you love him, you've heard him for a long time. Dan Moon, back here in the studio. Well, I was going to say back in the studio, but you never did your show in the studio.
No, I never did.
Why? Why didn't you do your show in the studio?
That's a good question. Let me tell you. I guess from the old school, you got to remember, I got into this broadcasting business in, 1954. Should I?
You started in radio in 1954.
Yeah, I was not quite 14 years old. I was still 13, going on 14 at WNOK Radio in Columbia.
Wow. Now this is weird. I worked at WNOK for about 5 years, AM and FM, and here's another. And what's your wife's name?
Mary.
My wife's name is Mary.
Ooh, wow.
So if you didn't work for WNOK or your wife's name is not Mary, forget about ever applying for a job at WTMA ever again. But 1954, what was it that got you into radio to begin with? Why did you go into radio? What was it about that?
I thought radio announcers were. I don't know. I was just absolutely enthralled with radio announcers. I thought they were the greatest thing in the world. They had beautiful voices. Back in this days, you had announcers, and the announcer would, the old hand behind the ear.
The Gary Owens thing.
Yeah, Gary Owens. Ladies and gentlemen, now. And I used to listen to a station in Columbia called WIS, which was at that time 560 on the dial. And they were way down on the dial. Mm-hmm. They had 5,000 watt signal, and they covered about half the state, I think. But they had real quality announcers, not disc jockeys. And I'd listen to them and learn and pronounce words that they would. And they could all talk so darn good. And I just said, I'd like to do that one day. And so I started hanging around at WNOK at the time.
Everyone's got these voices. I mean, listen to Dan. He's got the velvet tones.
We had a guy named Jack Cook. I think he's deceased now. He called himself Handy Andy on the radio. And I used to go up there and just hang around the radio station, in the mornings. I'd deliver the state paper. My daddy would shake me and rock me out of bed about 3:30 each morning. I'd get up, go pick up my state newspapers, and deliver them on my little green all-state motor scooter. And then I'd immediately run up to the radio station up on North. It was out on Main Street. It was in the old Jefferson Hotel in Columbia. And I'd get in there, and Mr. Cook would let me in. But eventually it got to the point where Mr. Cook gave me a key to that station, and I'd get in and beat him in the mornings, and I'd get everything turned on, sign on the transmitter, get it warmed up. And then again, Mr. Cook got real lazy. I still call him Mr. Cook. He was an old man at the time. But at any rate, one day he didn't show up, and 5:30 was the sign-on time, and rolled around, and he wasn't there yet. And I went ahead and came on the air and played the national anthem and the sign-on thing and one thing and another. He didn't show up for another 20, 25 minutes almost, and it was by this time almost 6, and I hadn't said a word on the air, scared to death, but I had played the music. You know? And finally, he calls up and he says, "Dan, I overslept." I said, "Well, what do you want me to do, sir?" And he said, "Well, play some music, and you got to do a newscast at the top of the hour." Oh, my Lord. So went to the old wire machine, you know, the old AP ticker tape machine type thing, you know. Pulled off some news and read it on the air. And Moody McElveen, who's a member of the South Carolina Broadcasters Hall of Fame, he's deceased. His son, Bill McElveen, I think still associated with Citadel Broadcasting. But Moody McElveen called up at the station, and he said, "Who in the..." Well, I won't use the word he said, but who in the heck is this?
Yeah, the same FCC rules still apply, by the way. Okay.
Who in the heck is this? And I said, "I'm Dan Moon." He said, "Well, who the heck are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm here for Mr. Cook." "Where's Mr. Cook?" "He's not here." "Where's he at?" "Well, I'm just filling in for him. He's running a little late." At any rate, he said, "All right." He said, "You tell Mr. Cook call me as soon as he gets in." So I did, and hear that phone ringing.
We're going to talk about this also because Dan, right now, I mean, he flashed a badge on me already when he came in the studio this morning. So he's on the clock right now too. So we're going to.
Yeah, I'm on the clock, and this was a call from one of the reporters out there who I hope will understand, but I'll get back with
well, he's bumping the reporter for a bigger name, meaning the big talker or whatever. and by the way, we do want to invite everybody. If you questions, comments, you want to talk with Dan Moon, 556-1250 is our phone number. You're always invited to join the conversation. But so continue, because what happened to Mr.
Cook? Jack Cook eventually came in, relieved me. I went on to high school. I was going to Dreher High School, and at any rate, I get a call. Apparently to my home while I was at school. When I got home, my mother says, "Mr. Cook called you, says he wants to see you at the radio station when you get home from school." My mother didn't even know I was going by the station, by the way. My father did not want me getting in any kind of entertainment business. He said, that's not real work. That's not a job. You don't want to do that.
Well, by the way, it's still not a job.
Yeah.
It's still not a job. It beats working.
I figured I'd get up to the radio station. I probably already lost my job before I even got one. And I get up there, and Moody McElveen calls me into the office, and I'm scared to death, 13, not quite 14. And at any rate, he just made a statement. He said, "Listen, if you're going to work here, you're going to get paid for it." And I took that to mean I guess I had a little job or something. I wasn't getting canned all of a sudden. He said, "I'm going to pay you 75 cents an hour." And that's what I made, 75 cents an hour. And I worked there for a while. And
but if there is anything that shows you that times have changed, it's now $1.75 an hour. So we definitely we're rolling in the bucks in radio, and that's how the Dan Moon era began on radio.
Yeah, that's how it began, and I eventually made it down here. I still a young man. Had a 1957 Ford. Wish I still had that thing. But I got in that thing one day and just said, "I'm going to head south," and east and south, and I came down what was then the partially completed I-26. I-26 only came down to Hollywood.
Because Highway 52 was the way to get down into Charleston.
52 or...
which is Rivers Avenue, folks, by the way, if you don't know. So.
Highway 52, Rivers Avenue, or you could come down Highway 178 or 78 and come in through the Garden down to 61 and come into Charleston. But, the interstate only came down as far as Holly Hill. And then you had to get off on Highway 15, I think it was, and scoot Holly Hill, then hit 176 and come down. But I just got in the car and came on down, and I stopped off the Holly Hill. There was a little radio station that had just gone on the air, and there's a friend of mine who was going to law school in Columbia. Told me he was going to put one on the air in Holly Hill one day. I had no idea what Holly Hill was or where it was. But at any rate, he called me and said, "Come on down," and I did, and went to work at the little station in Holly Hill. Things were going along pretty good until a big truck pulled up out front, an 18-wheeler, and I was the only one in the little concrete block building out there on Highway 176, and he come up here and asked for the owner, a guy named Rickenbacker, who is deceased now, Bert Rickenbacker. But I said, "Bert's not here." And he said, "Well, I'm here to pick up the transmitter." I said, "Do what?" He said, "Didn't pay the bills." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, didn't pay the bills." And so he's ready to pick up the transmitter. And had one of the little forklifts to the back of the truck. I guess they were somehow or other going to get it out of there. I don't know. At any rate, I said, "You can't." I stalled. I said, "My God, you can't take the transmitter. If you take the transmitter, I don't have a job." I mean, this is ridiculous.